You know, everyone sees the success of Chuck Norris. They don't know what Chuck Norris went through. Kid who was totally non-athletic, and I won the World Karate Championship. There's obstacles in any goal you want to pursue, and having that determination to overcome those obstacles. See, this is all part of the training of the martial arts. Again, you learn philosophies as you go from experiences in life. I believe in fate. I believe things happen for a reason, and because I dreamed of this as a child. There's two different things. So you got the art, which is the self-defense, and the philosophy. You got the sport. You know, the kicking and punching is only the vehicle.
Sad news to report here. The world mourning the loss of martial arts legend Chuck Norris.
Through his work, discipline, and kindness, he inspired millions around the world and left a lasting impact on so many lives.
On March 19th, 2026, the passing of Chuck Norris took the world by storm. From his iconic fight with Bruce Lee in The Way of the Dragon to his well-known role in Walker, Texas Ranger, he's left an unforgettable legacy in the film and martial arts scene. But today, we're here to pay tribute to the wisdom he left behind. Raised in humble beginnings in Oklahoma, in a family that struggled to make ends meet, his journey to global stardom was anything but easy. Although through all the challenges he endured, he proved that worry serves no purpose.
You don't worry about things? No, because it doesn't do any good. The thing is, let's say you worry about a problem. So here you are worrying and all this stuff. All of a sudden the problem's solved. All that anguish for nothing. You know, the thing is, worry doesn't solve the problem, and it actually hinders the problem. What you've got to do is try to find ways of solving that solution. And if you do, then you don't have time to worry about it.
It may be hard to stomach this ideology, coming from a man as wealthy and successful as Chuck Norris. Although in order to digest the message, we must look at the obstacles he overcame before his success.
I've gone through a lot of ups and downs. The people see strictly my success, but they don't know where I came from. A kid who grew up in the back hills of Oklahoma, who was totally non-athletic, and I won the World Karate Championship. And the kid who was extremely shy in school, had never even done a high school play or a book report. Now I'm doing this. The thing is, you find formulas, you find things that will help you work toward what you want. You learn philosophies as you go from experiences in life. Like for me, I'm very goal-oriented. I must have a direction for me to get up in the morning. I got to know what it is that I want to do. And it's like when I was a karate fighter. All I wanted to do was win a local karate tournament in LA. But once I won it, I thought, well, how about the state title? So the state title became the next goal. And then when I won that, then it was the national, international, then the world. If I had said I wanted to be the world champion when I first started fighting, it was too far beyond my conception. But I had realistic goals that I felt in my heart I could achieve. We all have basically two paths that we can follow in our life, a negative and a positive path. And what that means, Dennis, is in the negative side of it is that you feel in yourself, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't accomplish anything.
Right.
I was born poor, I was in the ghetto or the backwoods of Oklahoma like I was, so I just didn't get the right card, so I'm gonna always be a failure. Now, if I want to get high, I'll take drugs. If I want to escape from the problems of everyday life, I'll just go and get drunk. Of course, the end result of all this is total disaster and a complete unhappiness. But just by changing your attitude and setting goals, having a direction, and setting a specific goal and getting that goal vividly in your mind, and then having the determination to stick with it long enough. That's where most people fail, like you say, is that any goal that you want to accomplish, there are going to be obstacles in the way trying to stop you to get there. So you've got to force yourself to overcome these different obstacles. But that's an excitement and a high that you can never get with drugs, because with drugs you go up and down.
Yeah, sure.
But with this type of excitement, it's a continuous thing. And then if you'll study or train accordingly, there's very few things you cannot accomplish.
This philosophy of goal setting comes from decades in martial arts. Everyone sees the physical side, the kicks and punches, but the mental side is often overlooked.
This is the fighting field, you know, this is the sports field. There's two different things. So you got the art, which is the self-defense and the philosophy. You got the sport, which can get a little rough in the ring. Because the philosophy is the important tool here, Dick. You know, the kicking and punching is only the vehicle to strengthen that individual as a person, to raising their self-esteem, raising their self-worth, teaching them how to focus their lives in the proper way, in the most positive way, teaching them the philosophy of goal seeking and realizing that there's obstacles in any goal you want to pursue and having that determination to overcome those obstacles, to reach those goals. See, this is all part of the training of the martial arts. It's been my philosophy in life. And that's really been the secret of me succeeding to the extent that I've succeeded. You know, everyone sees the success of Chuck Norris. They don't know what Chuck Norris went through to reach this level of success that I have as a fighter. You know, I mean, it was tough. I was not an athlete, a natural athlete, and I had to train harder than the average person.
Nor a particularly big guy.
No. And I was 5'10", 168, 170. And then in the acting field, I had no acting ability at all. The more you do something, the better you're going to get at it. I've done 21 movies. I've been in the film business now 17 years, so naturally I should be better at it. But the thing is, as you probably know too, the better you get, the less you feel like you know. When I first started in film, I didn't know anything, so I wasn't afraid of anything. But as you get better, then you want to be better. The horizon gets bigger, the more knowledge you attain.
As a result, he became one of the most recognized figures in film and television, though it wasn't the path he imagined as a young martial artist. Perhaps it was fate that shaped the course of his life.
I've often wondered, if I hadn't been sent to Korea, if I hadn't studied the martial arts over there.
Yeah, you were an MP.
And I came back and started teaching, which direction my life would have turned, I'm not really sure. I believe in fate. I believe things happen for a reason. And I think there was a reason because I dreamed of this as a child. My dream, interesting enough, when I was a small child, you know, we were very poor in Oklahoma, so couldn't buy toys, so I used to use my mother's clothespins. You know, I had the big ones and little ones. And I used to use them to do battle, to be fighting the bad guy. And always the small clothespins were the good guys. The big ones were the bad guys. But amazingly, as I used to fight, I used to do kicks and all this stuff here and jump down and kick the bad guys. And then all of a sudden,
with clothespins?
With clothespins.
Yeah.
And then as I become an adult, you know, and now I'm doing it with the martial arts on the film and as a karate fighter and all that. So it's interesting how dreaming something as a child, doing all this, then all of a sudden that dream becomes a reality in my life as a martial artist.
It almost seems contradictory. A man celebrated as an action star and a legendary tough guy. Yet in these interviews, he comes across as calm, thoughtful, and unexpectedly gentle.
Another thing I've always observed about you that I find interesting is you seem to be such an interesting mixture of violence and gentleness. And karate is violent, but every time I've seen you, we've met about 3 or 4 times,
Yeah, right.
you seem to be a very gentle, mellow guy, centered.
It was like when I was a fighter. You know, I'd be walking down the aisle to the ring, and I'd be shaking hands and, you know, and saying hello to everybody. But once I walked into the ring, my whole demeanor changed because here's the man across the ring who's knocked my block off. And so I had to change my attitude. I had to become much more aggressive and almost animalistic. And when I fought him, then after the fight was over, then I'd go back to more of a mild individual. And that's basically the philosophy in my movies. The guy who isn't looking for trouble tries to avoid it. But when he's put into a position that he's got to face it, like we would have to do in real life, then he becomes that person to deal with that situation.
Now, most of you guys that are really the top-notch fighters are very quiet type individuals because when you walk around with that type of an attitude, it's generally from an insecurity anyway.
Most of the martial artists you meet are the humblest, nicest people you'll meet.
Speaking to this humble demeanor, Chuck has put a large amount of effort into philanthropic efforts over the years, one of them being the Kick Drugs Out of America Foundation.
Kick Drugs Out of America Foundation is the actual title, which means that I work with inner city kids in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade levels, and we teach the martial arts as part of the physical education curriculum in these particular schools. I have 680 kids in my program, and these are, as a karate teacher for years, I taught a lot of kids, and I saw what the martial arts could do for them. I had kids in my classes who couldn't communicate with kids their age, or low self-esteem, over-aggressive kids, whatever the case may be. And through the martial arts, we were able to help many of these kids, most of them. But these were kids whose parents could afford to come to my school. How about the millions of kids that couldn't afford it? So that's what this program is helping work with these kids whose parents can't afford the program.
How do you select them? Because there must be an awful lot more that want to come in than you can handle.
Oh gosh, yeah. Each school, you know, each school that we're teaching at, of course, the average is about 800 kids. We can only handle 150 per school. And so the teachers and the principal picks the kids. And it's all voluntary. They have to have their parents' permission. And what we found out is that out of all the kids in the school, that 90% of them want to be in our program. And that's the hard part, is picking the 150 out of, say, 600, 650 kids to be in the program. That's the hardest part of the whole thing. what's happening, of course, is, in the martial arts, you instill discipline and respect. And what is happening with these kids that we're teaching, you see that carrying over into their other classes, their English, math, history classes. Now they're responding to their teachers as yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, rather than yeah, no, and all this stuff here.
Really?
So it's carrying over. Interesting story. About 6 weeks ago, I went to one of the schools, which is the toughest school in Houston, Texas. And I went there for a belt promotion. And so we awarded the kids their belt that they tested for. And a mother had walked 2 miles with 2 infant children, 11-month and a 2-year-old child, to see her son get his gold belt. And how I even knew about this is after it was over, and it was in the evening, we were all leaving, and one of my instructors was driving down the street and saw her walking down the street with the 2 infants and the boy, and he picked them up and took them home. But what's happening is that the average turnout to a PTO meeting is 5% of the parents. What we're getting is 90% of the parents showing up for our
That's great. It's really wonderful that you're doing that.
Well, you got to get the parents and the kids working together, and that's what's lacking in our society today, is parents and kids doing things together.
In the end, the story of Chuck Norris isn't just written in championships or on the big screen. It's written in the lives he changed, the discipline he passed on, and the confidence he helped build. Rest in peace, Chuck Norris.